Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we are doing a review and kind of like a recap of the East Blue Saga. Of One Piece, obviously. Now, I originally wasn't going to do a review of the East Blue Saga because I already reviewed each and every one of the arcs individually. And so what could I really add by doing a review of East Blue Saga? I thought it would go something along the lines of, it was great, I loved it, really looking forward to what happens next. Which isn't really that good of a review, but then I remembered that I really am only going to know what I know now once. This time, next week, I'll have a whole new understanding of the characters, I'll have a whole new understanding of the Grand Line, I'll have a whole new understanding of the story and the world in which it's happening. So I thought I would take this opportunity to talk about the things that I loved so much about reading East Blue, the things that really got me into One Piece, because, when I first got into it, I was really just expecting like the kids' cartoon that I saw as a kid. I only really watched about 10 minutes of it before I had to go to school, and in Australia they only showed it up to the Black Cat Pirates ones where you first meet Usopp. So I thought I would talk about how it went from, just this ridiculous kids' cartoon in my mind to something that is just phenomenally well-written fantasy story. And I want to get my predictions out. I know that One Piece is an insanely, ridiculously hard story to predict, but I thought it'd be fun to make some predictions anyway. So let's get right into it. First of all, I just want to say I have been reading your comments, and I've gotten a few comments from people saying that I should read the color version of One Piece because apparently it's translated better and it's like pretty. So for at least the next arc, I am going to be trying out the colored version to see if it is translated better, if it is pretty. I have a feeling that it will be, because when I did first start reading One Piece... Hang on, I'll see if I can find my library book. Alright, when I did start first reading One Piece, I was reading it through the library, and I was reading it through this, and it's actually really funny because I just picked this up today. This is volume 456, which is like the second book. I have been waiting over a month to get this. I have finished the entire East Blue Saga before I even got the second book from the library. I mean, not that I can complain. I mean, they are giving it to me for free. I'm pretty excited to give that a try. And one of the things that I am worried about is I did really like how much swearing there is in One Piece, especially because in my mind, like I said, it did originate as a children's story for me. So the amount of swearing in it just like caught me by surprise, and I did really enjoy that. So I'm hoping that this other version doesn't like wash it down a little. But even if it does, I mean, that's not a huge deal. The next thing I want to talk about is, do you think I should get involved in the subreddit for One Piece? I've never really, I'm kind of like a old fogey in the way that I've never really been on Reddit before, but I heard that the subreddit for One Piece is like a really great community. So if you are part of that community, do you think I should get involved? Is it like, will I get a lot of spoilers there? I enjoy things like fan art. Will I find a lot of that there? Just let me know if you think that's worth getting involved with, because I've never really used Reddit before, so I'd also have to learn how to use Reddit. Alright, but let's start talking about the characters. And to everyone's probably surprise, I'm going to start by talking about Usopp. And the reason I want to start talking about Usopp is because for me as the reader, I felt that I understood, or like my understanding of Usopp changed the most throughout the story. Right, like at the beginning, he is considered a liar, he's like a tall tale kind of teller, try saying that 3 times fast, and he is considered like a coward. But then you quickly find out that, his lies were part of how he kind of coped with his parents going missing, or like his father going missing and his mother dying, and then he would go and tell Kaya the stories to help her get through her parents dying because he had been through something similar. So pretty quickly you find out his compassionate reasons for the reason the way he is. But out of everyone in the entire series, my opinion from where it first began to where it ended at the end of the saga grew the most for Usopp, because I felt like I got such an understanding about where his courage comes from. Like, technically he's a coward, but he's also very courageous, because the people that he travels with are just like these violent kung fu gods. You've got Luffy, who's indestructible and made of rubber and like just throws around lions and fights detachable clown pirates and stuff. And then you got Zoro, who's like, you know, the demon samurai guy with a sword in his mouth, and he's very clearly on his way to become the world's best swordsman. You got Sanji, who is just like the world's best kickboxer that only kicks. And he learned how to do that from like an infamous pirate. Also, he's a great cook. But those three are like these great kung fu god masters that like can just walk into anywhere and they are happy to fight whoever because their skills are able to back them up. Whereas for Usopp, he has none of those skills. He can shoot a slingshot very well. Which compared to like Demon Samurai Super Slice or Rubber Man or like Indestructible Kicking Force is nothing. Yet every time those people find themselves in struggle or strife or whatever, Usopp is there and he will say, I'm here to back you up. And he is there, you know, given he's 100 meters or so away, but he's like there ready to back him up, shoot a slingshot at whoever he has to shoot it at. And like compared to the Kung Fu gods, you know, what he's providing to the Force is really nothing. But he's there providing a force to these gods as they fight other gods. And whenever the tables turn and people give that attention to Usopp, his only defense is to run, which in the moment seems cowardly, and it seems like, oh, that old Usopp, all he does is lie and run from fights. But when he's fighting people that will just like destroy him, it makes sense that he runs. And it takes such a sheer force of courage for him to even go into that position, to even go into that battle where he can support his friends that really don't need his support, but he's that good of a friend and he's that courageous that he will put his life on the line to go and help them anyway. I don't know, that turned out to be more of a rant than I was expecting, but I just found such a newfound respect for Usopp by the end of this saga. And I really hope that other people see it that way too. This may be the hill that I die on. Next, let's talk about Nami. Like I said in a couple of the other videos, I really enjoyed Nami's character from the beginning to where she ends up at the end of Arlong Park. And one of the best questions that I had to ask about Nami was, one, do you think she betrayed the pirate crew? And do you think she got a redemption arc? And thirdly, do you think she needed a redemption arc? And I love that her story is so just like grey and shrouded that there really isn't cut and dry answers to these questions, right? Because at the beginning, she told Luffy, I will work with you, but only while our interests line up, and then I'm going away. And that's exactly what she did. Once she had the money, or was reminded of Arlong Park by those bounties, their interests no longer lined up because Luffy was heading to the Grand Line and she needed to get back to Arlong Park. So although it was a jerk move to steal the boat, she didn't really betray them because she was honest from the start to say that, you know, once our goals don't line up, I'm leaving. And I love that that's such a grey area of did she betray them, did she not betray them, because technically she didn't betray them by leaving, but by stealing that boat, you could really make that argument. And then there's also the like Nami redemption, like if she did betray them, then surely she has to go through a redemption to get back on their good side. And you can really see how she doesn't need to go through a redemption with Luffy's crew, because Luffy's crew are just the way that they are. They don't need Nami to go through that redemption. They're there to help because they're just like that great people, and they just still consider Nami part of their crew, that even though she finds herself in all this trouble and she like took their boat and ran away, the crew's just like, we're here to help. And it just adds that extra layer of grey questioning of, did she get a redemption? Because she didn't really apologize for stealing the boat or running away or anything like that. But then, did she need one? Because one, did she even betray the crew? And two, the crew didn't even want her to go through a redemption because they're just that good of people. And this is this is kind of the thing that I was talking about earlier, where I was like, One Piece just grew so much, in my opinion, from like just, you know, the dumb kids TV show that I was expecting it to be, to just a story that is just so thoroughly well written. And even the parts of the story, like, okay, let's talk about, you know what, so I'm not just sitting here gushing about One Piece and how much I love it for the next 40 minutes. Let's talk about negatives of One Piece. There really aren't that many negatives of One Piece that I have come across, and I have like reviewed a lot of books. I'm an author myself. I've done a lot of critical writing. I've done a lot of critical like review of works in progress, and One Piece just really does not have that many flaws. The only issue that I could see people having with One Piece is people that don't like the genre. And that's not an issue of One Piece, that's an issue of the person that's reading it not enjoying the genre. Like, if you hated reading, you know, BDSM, smutty kind of books, and then you read 50 Shades of Grey, and you hated it because it was like smutty BDSM stuff, that's not that story's fault that you hated it. That's that person's fault for reading a book that they knew that they were going to hate from the start, and all of their criticisms that they would have would be because they hate that genre. Not that I'm saying that 50 Shades is good or bad, I personally haven't read it, but I hear that it is really not that great. But anyway, so the thing is, if people really didn't have great things to say about One Piece, I would really question if they didn't like anime or if they didn't like manga, or however the hell I meant to say that. I said it manga once and I said it manga another time, and both times people in the comments were making fun of me at the way I said it. So please give me a pronunciation guide of manga or manga. But yeah, anyone that has read, you know, a lot of stories or has done like critical reviews of stories, they would honestly be able to look at One Piece and just tell you how phenomenally well written this is, how well thought out it is, and just how incredible this author is. It really is a fantastic story being told, and it kind of makes me sad to think that a lot of people would just dismiss One Piece as, you know, either the dumb kids cartoon or as, you know, lesser because of the medium in which it's being told. And there are a lot of YouTubers that are like really starting to get into reading One Piece and doing reviews on it, and I think that that is awesome, because the more people that get involved with this series, I think the better. Because great storytelling is what we're all after, regardless of the medium. Okay, that was a bit more of a tangent than I was expecting to go on. What were we talking about? We're talking about Nami. Yeah, right. So all that stuff with like her grayness and like the questions that were surrounding her story, and like there isn't really a cut or dry answer to it, which does really help to bolster the great storytelling that this series has. And then of course there's all the like layers and nuance with like her backstory with the Marine woman that did adopt them. And if you haven't seen that Arlong Park review, you should go and check it out, because there's a lot of stuff in the comments. People put in a lot more foreshadowing than I noticed. So if you did like Nami's story, look at the comments in that Arlong Park review, because there is a lot of foreshadowing that a lot of people talk about that I didn't mention at all, because obviously I didn't really know what to look for. But it's really, really interesting. Really, really great stuff that other people have picked up on and commented on that video. But I think my favorite part of that whole thing was when Nami finds out that she can't get the tattoo removed, or, you know, they can only like partially remove it or something. And so instead she gets them to cover it up with the pinwheel and the orange. And I just seen fan art of One Piece, like, you know, fan art of One Piece is hard to not find. Especially when you, like, follow a lot of, like, nerdy Facebook pages or, like, nerdy Instagram pages. Like, you'll always find One Piece fan art or, like, One Piece whatever will pop up quite frequently. And so I always saw Nami's tattoo, and I never really understood what it was. So it was so great to see that really deep emotional backstory and like meaning to that tattoo. And I never would have guessed it was a pinwheel with an orange. But then once you know the meaning behind it and then you see it, you're like, wow, it's like so obviously a pinwheel with an orange. Let's talk about Zoro next. How could we have a conversation about characters and not mention one of the coolest characters in fantasy, Zoro? I really like what they did with Zoro in regards to his power level, in regards to how skilled he is as a swordsman. Because the fact is that when he's coming across just like regular people, he does just like ninja, samurai, demon swordsman, cut them all down like quite easily. But when he comes across like the best swordsman of the enemy crew, you know, it is a battle, it is a real fight, and he does usually get injured and then just like faint or like fall asleep after he's done battling. And I did actually like that quite a lot. But the thing that I really enjoyed about Zoro was how he got to see his main competition, so to speak, when he came across Hawkeye's Hawkeye or something. I really like that Zoro got to see this person that just like completely obliterated him, right? He's this guy that just like floats around on his own little like pontoon thing, and he has the ability to cut swords in half. But when he decided to fight Zoro, he used like this tiny little knife because that's all he needed to fight Zoro, and he like won. And I did really like that from a storytelling point of view because it showed how far Zoro would need to grow, how far he would need to come as a swordsman in order to fulfill his dream of becoming the best swordsman. And just from like a storytelling standpoint, it just shows that he's got like so much room to grow. He's got so much to learn as a character, and I am here for it. I want to see Zoro become the world's best swordsman, but I want him to struggle to get there. I want him to have to like fight tooth and nail and like claw his way to the top. And I want to see like the showdown between like Zoro and Mihawk, and you know, the moment where like Mihawk will pull out his big sword because Zoro has earned the right to die to that big sword. At least in the eyes of Mihawk. Because in my eyes, he won't die to that sword. In my eyes, Zoro will win. Who knows, maybe he'll even like get the sword as a present. I don't know. I will say though that I thought Zoro's backstory was just a little bit ridiculous in the way that, you know, it all made sense. You know, he had that girl and they were training and she was like, look, the sad fact is you're a dude, and so one day you're just going to eventually become stronger than me. And they made that pact, and like it was all really great and it was really emotional and it was fun to be a part of it. But I thought it was kind of ridiculous that this girl that is training to become like the world's best swordsman and is a better fighter than Zoro would just like trip walking down the stairs and die. Like, that's a little ridiculous considering like how graceful you have to be a swordsman, how strong you have to be a swordsman, and like she showed like she was the best in the class, but she can't walk down a set of steps without tripping and dying. And it was like really, really abrupt as well. I thought that, I don't know, I thought that there were probably better ways to have her die. Maybe she could have been killed by a pirate, so like that could have fed into like why Zoro became a pirate hunter, not only to cross swords with pirates all the time and train himself, but to get revenge for her. Or maybe she could have been like struck down with a sickness or lost at sea or something. I don't know. It just seems really bizarre to me that the way that she is removed from the story is she just trips falling downstairs. Like, that seemed really bizarre to me. But I love Zoro and I am keen to find out what happens next. I am rooting for him. I hope he does become the world's best swordsman. He makes me want to purchase 3 samurai swords, because that would be really cool. But in saying that, I also want to purchase a straw hat so I can be like Luffy. So who knows, maybe I'm just easily influenced and need to think things through a little bit more. Let's talk about Sanji next. Personally, I found his story the most shocking out of all of them. Like his specific backstory, where he was trapped on that island with Zeph. And Zeph gives Sanjay all of the food and is like, make sure it lasts. And he gives himself nothing and has to like chop off his own leg with a rock, and he like eats his own leg instead of like taking the food from the child. I really loved his story for that just like shock value, and I loved Zeph, and I loved their like kind of how they butted heads but were still friends, and how everyone tried to act like they didn't care, how everyone tried to act like they didn't want him there, so he would go and pursue his dreams of finding All Blue. So I did really like his like origin story, so to speak, but I felt as if in character growth terms, he had the least amount of growth because he was with us for the least amount of time. And that brings us on to Luffy. Now, what can I possibly say about Luffy? Luffy is just this absolute force of nature. But not just like regular nature, he's an absolute force of chaos, but like a chaotic good. Trying to pin down Luffy's character is like trying to catch smoke. He is just so happy-go-lucky and just like doesn't think of the consequences because the world just doesn't have consequences to him. He's just like, I will be king of the pirates. I will go to One Piece. I'll find One Piece. I'll go to the Grand Line. Everything that just stands in my way is just doesn't matter. It may as well not be there because I am Luffy. I will be king of the pirates. I'm going to the Grand Line. Who's coming with me? And then when they're like, I don't want to go to the Grand Line with you, he's like, too late. I've already decided you're part of my crew. You're coming with me to the Grand Line. He's just such a charming, like, I don't even, like, imagine he's like Robin Hood, where he does, like, bad things, but he does them for, like, great reasons. Like, in the early ones, when he beats up that kid, I can't remember his name, Cody, was it? When he beats up Cody to convince the Marines that he wasn't part of Luffy's crew and he wasn't a pirate, so the Marines would, like, let Cody join the crew. I love Luffy as just this unstoppable force of just good-natured carnage. God, I'm giving the worst descriptions of Luffy, but like, if anyone can think of a better description of Luffy than good-natured carnage, I would love to hear it. But I think one of the most endearing things about Luffy is how loyal he is to his friends and how much his friends mean to him. Like, just going back to Arlong Park, there's that scene where, like, Nami is crying and she, like, turns to Luffy and it's this, like, really emotional scene. And she goes, like, Luffy, help me. And Luffy takes off his hat, his most prized possession in the entire world, and he dunks it on her head. And he just screams, of course I will! And it's just one of those things where it's like, his, like, selfless friendshipness comes out because he, like, doesn't care that Nami betrayed him. She doesn't care that, you know, anything like that. He doesn't need an apology. All he sees is his friend suffering, and he will do whatever it takes to stop that suffering from happening. And I love it. Luffy's a fantastic friend. He's a ridiculous force of crazy nature that will just destroy everything. I guess it's kind of like having a puppy. Luffy's kind of like a puppy where, like, he'll just, like, run around and, like, destroy things, but he's also just the best thing you'll have in your life and a fantastic companion. I don't know. Luffy is just a really hard character to pin down. I guess that's kind of the point of his character though, right? And that's why people love him so much. Alright, this video is already heaps longer than I was expecting and I haven't even started talking about the villains yet. So let's move on and let's talk about the villains. Now, I feel like I've said it in all of my reviews so far. I think that a story can really only be as great as its villains, and One Piece has phenomenal villains. From Alvida, to Buggy the Clown, to Smoker, to Skinny Alvida, to Arlong and Momu, and Pirate Fleet Captain Krieg, or whatever his official title was. I love them all. I think that One Piece's villains are just so phenomenal. And I feel as if it really does help to bolster the story. Whether they are the kind of more serious villains or whether they are the more ridiculous kind of jokey ones like Buggy, they really help to elevate this story through the things that they're doing. And on top of the, like, traditional piratey villain, I also like the fact that there is so much corruption in the Marines. And I mentioned this before, I really like the corruption in the Marines because they are meant to be the water police. They are meant to be these forces of good. And it is such a great opposite and such a great foil to Luffy's crew, who are pirates, so they're meant to be bad people, but they're actually quite good people. And it just creates this nice little crisscross applesauce of, like, people that should be something, but they're completely opposite. Which again was subverted when we came across Smoker in the Logtown arc, where he did prove to be, like, a pretty decent guy when the little girl, like, spilled ice cream on him, and so he gave her a bunch of money to get more ice cream. And so with so much corruptions in the Marines, it was also great to see someone that wasn't corrupt. Or at least, to the best of my knowledge, he wasn't corrupt. And I'll just say one more thing about the villains. I did really enjoy the fact that the villains weren't just one and done. The villains weren't just, like, fought, killed, That's it, move on, we don't need to see them anymore. I enjoyed the fact that they were more like Team Rocket, where like Luffy gum bazookas them off into the thing, and it's like Buggy and Alvida, here we go again, or whatever it is Team Rocket says, ting! And then they like both came back at the end of the story to behead Luffy. I did really enjoy that because these villains are so well written and they have so much personality to them, which is another great thing in storytelling that is really, really difficult to do and you don't see a lot of, is villains having such personality to them. So I'm glad that wasn't just lost. I'm glad it wasn't just one and done, lost. Even if we never see Buggy and Aldiva again, the fact that they came back for the finale of this saga was enough for me. I was just so glad to see them again and to like see their personalities again and to see them, try to get their revenge on Luffy. Alright, I'm going to talk a little bit about the world building and then we'll get into my predictions for the rest of the One Piece series. So the world building in One Piece was one of the things that I did not predict that I would enjoy. It was the most surprisingly great part about One Piece for me. Because I wasn't really expecting to like the ridiculous absurdity that is One Piece. The like weird cartoony animals, the like guy that was trapped inside the treasure chest, just things like this. Momu, the giant sea cow that was a giant cow from the sea. It is so childish in a way, but the themes and the story and like the things that the people are doing are so incredibly dark that, it's kind of like Happy Tree Friends. I don't know if you guys ever watched Happy Tree Friends, but it had that same kind of like just child cartoon like, but it was really, really dark. And obviously One Piece isn't the exact same thing as Happy Tree Friends, but I do really enjoy that contrast between what you can see in the world versus this like underlying current of like badness or like evil. I don't want to use the word evil, that's not really what I'm looking for, but maybe darkness or danger. It's a story about violent pirates being told through absurdity means. I don't know if that really made sense, but I'm gonna stick with it. Anyway, the point I'm trying to get at is I loved it. I loved the world. I loved the contrast between what you saw and what you felt. I loved how like emotional everything was. I tell you what, I was not expecting so much like emotional beats and all that to be happening in this story. But again, it's just a testament to how just damn well written this series is. But yeah, I loved it. I loved everything. I loved everything that I've read so far. The stories, the characters, the setting, the plot, the villains. Like, I don't know what else there is to say except that it was phenomenally well written and well done. And I am desperately excited to see what happens next. And talking about what happens next, let me give you some predictions because I can only really be this ignorant once, not knowing what's coming next and all that good stuff. So let's talk about what I think will happen next. Firstly, I think it's pretty clear that they are going to end up in the Grand Line. Right? I don't think that is silly of me to predict. I imagine that in the next, like, one chapter or in the next, like, saga, they will end up in the Grand Line. It just makes sense because that's the way that this East Blue saga ended, was them going into like whatever canal or whatever it is that they needed to go to get to the Grand Line. So that should be no shock. I'm not going to be surprised if that happens at all. What I will say about the crew, I imagine that they are going to get a doctor, right? Because it's been brought up on 3 different occasions in like 3 different arcs that they said that they needed a musician, and they said that they needed a cook, and they said they needed a doctor. So they've got the cook. So I imagine the next 2 will be a doctor and a musician. But I'm kind of thinking that like the musician may or may not happen. I kind of maybe think that might be a red herring. But the doctor, I can't foresee them not getting. And with the doctor, I either imagine they will be quite young, like the 18, 19, 20 that like Luffy and his crew is, or it will be very, very, very comically old. and like the oldness of the Doctor will become the butt of many jokes. As for the musician, I don't really see the musician thing happening, although if you ever played like Dynasty Warriors, there was, you know, a woman that would fight people with her flute. Or if you ever watched Kung Fu Hustle, there was a guy that had like some kind of musical instrument and would like fight people with his musical instrument. Or if you ever played League of Legends, there's Sona that does the same thing. So, you know, in like anime and that kind of thing, there are people that do fight other people with musical instruments. But I would definitely predict they would get the Doctor first. In terms of like other predictions, you know, One Piece is just so incredibly difficult to predict. Like there's just, I don't even know what to think for any of the other characters. I know at some point there's like a time skip. I'm not really quite sure what that is about, but so I have no predictions in regards to that. I imagine that they'll get a new boat, right? Like the Going Merry is a fine ship, but it is quite small, so I imagine at some point they will upgrade their boat and get like a bigger one. But yeah, besides that, I really can't even begin to predict what will happen next. I've really thoroughly enjoyed everything that I've read so far about One Piece, and I am really looking forward to starting the next saga, which I will start directly after finishing this video. I wanted to film this video, so I wouldn't really have any idea what was coming next when I got into the next saga. So by the time you see this, I will have probably already finished that next saga. I'm pretty pumped. I'm pretty excited. Thank you so much for watching this far into this video. Thank you everyone for supporting me on my One Piece journey. I've been loving it. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment down below. Let's talk about Nami's redemption arc if we haven't already talked about it. Let's talk about what your favorite part of the East Blue Saga is. Maybe try and describe Luffy's character to me. If there's anything that I missed out on, or if there's anything that I got wrong or got incredibly right, feel free to talk about it below. And as always, thank you very much.